You're listening to the fourth series of Behind the Rhymes, the mountain we all climb, with me, Maja.
And me, Andrew. Death's bad rap. Everyone blames death for the absence of life, but none blame life for the death's existence, even though they are husband and wife. Life goes about in the sun, happy, gay. Death walks alone at night and in the shadows during the day. It's always death's fault when life is missing, gone, or never began. But in a race, the end is celebrated, but the start is just the start, like waking with a half-filled heart, waiting to be filled before it's emptied by life, and death again, shamed, gets accused as we depart.
What lies behind these rhymes, Andrew?
I don't think there's many metaphors involved in this poem, actually. I think it's...
Why did you choose the comparison between husband and wife and life and death?
Because life and death are opposite sides, like a lot of, this yin and yang, there's opposite sides, and life and death are an opposite side, and it's more to do with that we don't think of death in the same way as we think of life. I wrote two poems about death, and the other one's called We Should, and it's essentially, they're different, but the what I'm trying to get at is the same, is that we're often very, very afraid of death, but it's a natural part of life. If we didn't die and people were born, it would be horrible on the planet. There'd be no resources, there'd be no space. So yes, death is a sad part of life. I'm not saying, birth, it tends to be a happy part of life, and death tends to be a sad one. But I thought of death as a character, which I will admit, having read Terry Pratchett's books, he had death as a character as well. Death was also very misunderstood in those books.
Humans have always strived to live longer, although you explain our culture quite well by saying that people are afraid of death and they strive towards extending life as much as possible, especially now that we have better quality of life. So people think that the ultimate goal is to live as long as possible, and there are a lot of debates on this, whether that's the right way. How do you see us today and the way we deal with this longevity, quality of life versus length of life?
I'm a big believer in quality over quantity, and I'm a nurse, and some people in my profession think that that's not an appropriate view for a nurse to have, but my personal beliefs are that quality is far better than quantity. What would I want to be? In a state where I couldn't enjoy life as much, or would I like 60 years? If you're given that choice, would you like 50 years of pure quality of life, or would you like to live 100 years, but the last 50 years may not be so great, despite medical advances? I wonder what people would choose. I'll flip this to you as well. So, would you want to be immortal?
Would I want to be immortal?
Yeah. Would you want to live forever?
That's a tough one. I have never thought about that because it's not an option. So I rarely think about things which are not an option or things that I can't affect. But I think if people that are close to me can't be immortal, then I probably wouldn't, because it would be quite lonely to be immortal.
Yeah, so there's an example of quantity over quality.
How would you celebrate the end of your life? Because you're advocating that the end of life should be a celebration, like beginning of life is often a celebration.
The traditional way of celebrating the end of a life is a funeral, and I've been to many funerals. It's one of those interesting facts, isn't it? That as you get older, the more funerals you go to, the less weddings and the more funerals you go to. and they tend to be somber affairs, and obviously they serve a purpose. They are for grieving. They are to allow you to grieve. They are to allow people to collectively grieve. Now, some cultures around the world celebrate death in a much more open and sort of exotic way, I would say. It's not about wearing a black suit or a black dress and singing hymns and, watching a coffin disappear behind curtains. Personally, I don't know. You and I have talked about like the end of life. I mean, it's I don't know. No one really wants to think that their life's going to end, but of course
It will.
It will at some point. That is certainly the option for all of us. Life is not guaranteed, but as soon as you're born, death is certainly guaranteed. Whenever that is going to be in that lifespan. I don't know. I used to ask that question actually at work. If you could do that, how would you do it? And there was some quite outlandish and funny funny answers about how you would achieve that. Some people have this romanticized idea that they would want to go out saving other people or sort of remembered in some way. But I think a lot of the fear of death and people's issue with it is being remembered afterwards. And we've talked about this as well off mic. I personally don't want any marker, so I don't want any marker for myself, because I want to live in the memory of people that know me or knew me until they're not here either, and that's just, and we all just drift off into the dust of the universe. I don't want a monument. I don't want anybody to ever feel obliged that they have to go and put flowers on my grave when it's my birthday. I don't want that for somebody else. I don't, and also on the flip side, I understand the need for graves and the purpose that graves have, but I don't often visit graves in that way. It's the person that you loved. The physical remains may be below your feet, but the person who they are in your memories.
Yes, we often walk around graveyards during our walks. I find it very interesting. Obviously, I don't know most of these people who are buried there. And aside from being a memorial for the family of the people who died, sometimes you can sort of see the character of that person by what they've chosen to write, to have written on their gravestone. And sometimes you can sort of see a glimpse of a story. So I find graveyards quite interesting, and they certainly are markers of their time. So very often, if a grave is older than 100 years, it's very difficult to actually read what's written on them. Then the materials used for making gravestones have changed throughout time. So yes, I can see basically what you're saying is that you don't want to oblige people to come to your grave, but then if you don't have one, then you take away the opportunity of people to do that.
If I died in a faraway place, I wouldn't expect people to come and visit me and have that trek. Isn't it better that they can just travel there in their mind from their armchair in their front room, or look at a photograph, or listen to music? These are all associations that people have.
Or read your book.
Yeah, or read the book. Yeah, I guess maybe they are my own epitaphs, maybe my own gravestones.
Yes. Okay, so now that we know what Death's Bad Rap is about, would you like to read it for us again?
Death's bad rap. Everyone blames death for the absence of life, but none blame life for the death's existence, even though they are husband and wife. Life goes about in the sun, happy, gay. Death walks alone at night and in the shadows during the day. It's always death's fault when life is missing, gone, or never began. But in a race, the end is celebrated, but the start is just the start. Like waking with a half-filled heart, waiting to be filled before it's emptied by life, and death again, shamed, gets accused as we depart.
You've been listening to Behind the Rhymes, the mountain we all climb, with me, Maya.
And me, Andrew. You can find all the poems from this series in my new book, Beyond the Bunker, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Write Poetry.
The book is produced by our publishing company, Ann R. Key. And if you want to order it, contact us at vonperestproductions@outlook.com.
Where you can also contact us about other things, maybe even including a chat about the state of the world.